Both Dead or Alive by Samar Guha, Member of Parliament. Chapter-1, Part-2, Russian Disclosure. First investigation by the headquarters of Mountbatten. It appears from the above report discarded the story of Netaji's death. Accordingly, the intelligence team that was sent from Delhi to track bosses in the region of Southeast Asia was given special instructions to arrest both dead or alive. If either the British authority in India or Mountbatten's headquarters at Singapore really believed that Netaji died in the reported air crash, there would be no question of asking the investigating team to arrest both dead or alive. The British arrest all the top-ranking Japanese officers, INA generals, and ministers of the Azad Hind government. Soon after the surrender of Japan, all these important personnel captured in the Southeast Asia were repeatedly interrogated by the British intelligence team. It was revealed in the course of their interrogations that Netaji's plan after flight from Saigon was to go to the Russian territory across the Manchurian border. Although the Russian newspaper Pravda uncalled for published a denial of the report of Netaji going over to Russia, two Russian diplomats stationed then at Kabul and at Tehran publicly confirmed Netaji's arrival at Moscow. A British intelligence report submitted to Wavell's government during early part of 1945 noted in its secret communication that probably Bose reached to Russian territory and Gandhi and Nehru also received some secret communications from him. This report was found in the documents submitted before Shah Nawaz committee, which noted, quote, Gandhiji stated publicly at the beginning of January 1946 that he believed that Bose was alive and is hiding, ascribing it to his inner voice. The congressman believed that Gandhiji's inner voice is a secret information which he received. There is, however, a secret report which says Nehru received a letter from the Bose saying that he was in Russia and that he wanted to escape to India. The information alleges that Gandhi and Sarat Bose are those who were aware of this. It is possible that a letter arrived about the time Gandhiji made his public statement. In January, also, Sarat Bose is reported to have said that he was convinced that his brother was alive. Another piece of intelligence which connects Bose with the Northwest Frontier Province is a letter written by President of the Frontier Student Congress that he was going there himself. In this letter, the writer said that the Bose is in TT. That was some code word. The information received from the internal source is puzzling, and same can be said about the external information. On 7th January, the Russian paper Pravda denied in stronger terms that Bose was in Russia. Before this, however, Gilazri Malang had been coupling with a live Bose in Russia, and in December, a report said that the governor of Afghan province Khost has been informed by the Russian ambassador in Kabul that there are many Congress refugees in Moscow and Bose was included in their number. There is a little reason for such persons to bring Bose into fabricated stories. At the same time, the view that the Russian officers are disclosing or alleging that Bose is in Moscow is supplied in a report received from Tehran. This stated that Muradov, the Russian Vice Consul General, disclosed in March that Bose is in Russia. The Hoku Congress and Russian representatives in Tehran and Kabul are most important objectives in this case as it sounds now. The British intelligence must have had pursued the matter further at Kabul and at Tehran for ascertaining the truth about the report of Netaji's arrival at Moscow and submitted their findings to the government. But no report about such follow-up action was placed either before Shah Nawaz Committee or Khosla Commission. The government under Mrs. Gandhi told Khosla Commission that many confidential files of Nehru connected with the reports about Netaji were either missing or destroyed. These files were dealt with by the personal secretary of Pandit Nehru, Mr. Muhammad Yunus. Did Nehru betray Netaji? The British intelligence team informed their government that Pandit Nehru received a secret communication from Bose. This report was confirmed by a witness, Shri Shyamlal Jain of Meerut, while he deposed before Khosla Commission in 1945 to 1946. Shri Jain was working as a confidential steno of Asaf Ali, who was secretary to the INA Defence Committee with Bhulabhai Desai as its chairman and Pandit Nehru as one of its prominent members. This confidential steno of the INA Defence Committee in the course of his deposition made a shocking revelation about Nehru's attitude towards Netaji. Shri Jain told Khosla Commission, quote, I solemnly affirm and state on oath that one evening I was called by Shri Jawaharlal Nehru on telephone to come to the residence of Shri Asif Ali with a typewriter as he had a lot of work to be typed by me, which I complied. After getting some papers typed by me, Shri Jawaharlal Nehru drew out a paper from the pocket of his apron and asked me to make 4 copies of it for him. The said paper was a handwritten matter and was somewhat difficult to read. Now what was written in that paper I am trying to reproduce from memory. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose was proceeding by aeroplane from Saigon, arrived today, August 23, 1945 at Dharain, Manchuria at 1:30 afternoon. The said plane was a a Japanese bomber plane. It was full of gold in the shape of bars, ornaments, and jewelry. Netaji carried two attache cases and one in each hand. On alighting from the plane, Netaji took tea with bananas. When Netaji finished tea, he, along with four others, out of which one was Japanese named General Shidei and others have lapsed from memory, took their seats in a jeep standing nearby. The said jeep proceeded towards Russian territory. After about 3 hours, the said jeep returned and informed the pilot of the plane, who flew back to Tokyo. After handing over the said paper to me for typing, Sri Jawaharlal Nehru went to Mr. Ashraf Ali and remained busy in conversation with him for 10 to 15 minutes. I could not complete the work because the name of the writer on that letter was not readable, and I kept waiting for Sri Jawaharlal Nehru to come and tell the name. In the meantime, I went through the letter several times, and that is all that I could remember to the present day. Sri Jawaharlal Nehru could not discern the name of the writer and asked me to pull out the papers and hand over to them as they were. I solemnly and state on oath that thereafter Sri Jawaharlal Nehru gave me 4 papers from his writing pad to make 4 copies of a letter which he would dictate to me on typewriters, which I also complied. The contents of the letter, as far as I could remember, were as follows. To Mr. Clement Attlee, Prime Minister of Britain, 10 Downing Street, London. Dear Mr. Attlee, I understand from a reliable source that Subhash Chandra Bose, your war criminal, has been allowed to enter Russian territory by Stalin. This is a clear treachery and betrayal of faith by Russians. As Russia has been an ally of the British Americans, it should not have been done. Please take note of it and do what you consider proper and fit. Yours sincerely, Jawaharlal Nehru. One has to rub one's eyes many times to read and then to believe what Shri Jain told Khosla Commission. Can the evidence of Shri Jain be relied upon? It appears as unthinkable that Pandit Nehru could stoop down so low to ask Mr. Attlee to see that their war criminal boss was buried alive in Russia. But from the circumstantial facts, that testimony of Jain cannot be discarded as a fringement of an ugly imagination. Firstly, the British intelligence affirmed that Pandit Nehru received a secret communication from Netaji, and Jain confirmed it further without knowing anything about this secret report. Secondly, Colonel Tada, one of the principal architects of Netaji's escape plan, confirmed to South S.A. Iyer in the 1951 that the Japanese agreed to make necessary arrangements to convey Netaji to Russian territory across the border of Manchuria. Thirdly, neither the government counsel appearing before the inquiry commission nor Mr. Khosla either challenged or refuted the veracity of Jain's testimony. Fourthly, most of the secret files about Netaji that were maintained by Pandit Nehru himself as PM's special files, one of which included all communications connected with INA Defense Committee, were reported by the government as either missing or destroyed. It will not be easy to presume that Netaji's communication to Nehru and a copy of Nehru's letter to Attlee have also been destroyed. Fifthly, Pandit Nehru's attitude towards Netaji completely changed after he met Mountbatten at Singapore in 1946. Late Amritlal Seth, former editor of Gujarati daily Janbhoomi, who accompanied Nehru during his visit to Singapore, told late Sarath Chandra Bose immediately after his return from Singapore that Panditji was warned by British Admiral that according to his report, Bose did not die in the alleged air crash, and if Nehru played up too high with the legends of Bose and demands for reabsorption of INA in the Indian Army, he would be taking the risk of presenting India on a platter to Bose when he reappeared. Sixthly, the report of Amritlal Seth is corroborated by 2 facts. On arrival at Singapore, Pandit Nehru was given a rousing reception by the INA there. When Panditji agreed to their request to place a wreath on the INA Martyr Monument, which was demolished under the orders of Mountbatten immediately after British reoccupation of Singapore. Strangely, next day, Nehru refused to attend the INA Martyr Memorial ceremony organized at Singapore. About 3 decades later, Mountbatten boastfully stated in his Nehru oration speech that Nehru acted very compliantly on his advice regarding treatment about INA. Seventhly, after his return from Singapore, Nehru never uttered a word about Netaji for over a decade, even after he became Prime Minister of India. Till 50s, AIR was instructed not to cover any special talk on Netaji or broadcast any news about Netaji's birthday exceeding a few minutes. All army barracks were prohibited from displaying any portrait of Netaji, and this ban order continued for years even after withdrawal of the British power. Eighthly, after coming to power, Pandit Nehru got all the secret British reports which informed the rebel government that Bose reached Russia, but as Prime Minister of India, he never inquired anything publicly about these reports from the Russian government. Ninthly, Nehru all along opposed any demand of a full-fledged judicial inquiry about Netaji mystery and appointed Shahnawaz committee mainly for the purpose of settling the move for non-official inquiry about Netaji under the chairmanship of Dr. Radha Binod Pal. Pandit Nehru's changed attitude towards Netaji and particularly regarding inquiry about him lends credence, though abominable to think of, to the testimony of Shyamlal Jain. Suppression of a vital document by Nehru. Pandit Nehru undertook another unusual step in suppressing a very important document on Netaji, which definitely indicated that the revolutionary leader had a positive plan to go to Russian territory across the border of Manchuria. In 1951, Pandit ji had sent Sri S. A. Iyer, a former publicity minister of the Azad Hind government who was then working with the Bombay government as their publicity officer, to Japan for collecting information relating to the report of Netaji's death. On the return from Tokyo, Sri S. Iyer submitted a long report to Nehru, which was read out by Pandit ji in parliament, but Pandit ji did something which one would not have expected a man of his stature and position. Iyer's report to Nehru included an extremely important confidential note, but Pandit Nehru withheld this note from the knowledge of parliament. The existence of this confidential note came to light when the government perhaps inadvertently produced it along with the original report of Iyer to Nehru before Khosla Commission. Pandit Nehru's other confidential files relating to the story of Netaji's death were withheld from the commission, but this confidential note somehow came before it. This note of Iyer contained a very significant information communicated to him at Tokyo by Colonel Tada. Colonel Tada was a special officer attached to the headquarters of FM Tirauchi at Saigon. General Isoda and Colonel Tada were the two high-ranking Japanese military officers who, under instructions from FM Tirauchi, prepared the top secret plan of Netaji's escape from Saigon. In his confidential note, Iyer informed Nehru, quote, "This time I could gather very important information. Colonel Tada told me that after the end of the war, when Japan surrendered, Tirauchi took all responsibility to help Netaji and asked him to go to Kaka Bose, His Excellency Bose, and tell him to reach Russian territory. All help will be given to him. It was arranged that Chandra Bose will fly in the plane in which Shidei was going. General Shidei will look after Chandra Bose up to Dharan, and thereafter he could fall back on his own resources to contact the Russians. Japanese would announce to the world that Bose had disappeared from Dharan. That would absolve them of all responsibility in the eyes of the aliens. General Shidei, who was appointed chief of the Japanese Manchurian army, knew English and German quite well and was very friendly with Netaji. He was going to take charge of the Japanese army in Manchuria, which was opposing the advancing Russian army in that sector of war at that time. Sri Jain did not know anything about the existence of this confidential note of Iyer, which was submitted to the commission much later. About a year after his deposition before it, the contents of Iyer's note materially confirmed the evidence of Sri Jain. Dilemma of Pandit Nehru. Pandit Nehru told the Lok Sabha in 1956 that Netaji's death was a settled fact, but his behavior later related to the issue clearly showed that in his heart of hearts he did not believe it. In late 50s, Nehru visited Rankoji Temple near Tokyo in Japan, where the alleged ashes of Netaji were reported to have been preserved. Many other distinguished Indians like Dr. Rajendra Prasad and Rafi Ahmad Kidwai also visited the temple, and in its visitors book they recorded their deep feelings in paying high respect to the memory of Netaji. Pandit ji, while visiting Rankoji Temple ostensibly for the same purpose, avoided writing anything in the visitors book, either good or bad, in memory of Netaji. Instead, he scribbled a sentence in which read, "May the message of Buddha bring peace to mankind." Can it not be presumed that Pandit ji knew quite well that Netaji did not die in the alleged air crash, and it was this knowledge that erased his conscience from writing any arbitrary note about Netaji in the visitors book? After about 2 decades, perhaps Pandit ji's conscience started wavering. In reply to a letter from an older brother of Netaji, late Suresh Chandra Bose, who was also a member of Shahnawaz committee, Pandit Nehru wrote, quote, "You asked me to send you proof of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's death. I cannot send you any precise and direct proof, but all the circumstantial evidence that has been produced and which has been referred to in the inquiry committee's report has convinced us of the fact that Netaji died. In addition to this, the lapse of time and extreme improbability of his being alive and living secretly somewhere, when he would be welcomed in India with great joy and affection adds to that circumstantial evidence, unquote. Look what a reply it was. Pandit Nehru admitted that there was no direct or precise proof of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's death. Nevertheless, he accepted the death report as true because circumstantial evidence proved it. But to find out the most relevant circumstantial evidence, he did not allow Shahnawaz committee to visit Taihaku in Taiwan, which was alleged to be the place of occurrence of the reported accident. That Netaji did not return to India could such a argument to be attributed to justify the report of his death in the alleged air crash. He might have been under duress in Russia, as now revealed by the publication of top secret British documents. Nehru quite probably knew what happened to Netaji, and he therefore made every effort to avoid the crucial issue that was involved in ascertaining the truth about the story of Netaji's death. Shri K.K. Shah, the former Information and Broadcasting Minister and Governor of Tamil Nadu, told the present writer in 1968 that Nehru never believed the story of Netaji's death. Nehru personally told this to Shri Shah on more than one occasion. Shri Shah also informed the writer that Pandit Nehru maintained a special secret file himself about all information regarding Netaji. This fact about a special files about Netaji was elaborated later when the report about PM's file missing or destroyed was produced before Khosla Commission. Pandit Nehru's persistent interest, although maintained under strict secrecy, showed that he knew that Netaji did not die in the alleged air crash and reached Russia after the surrender of Japan. He always felt extremely concerned if any report or even rumor was found anywhere about the probability of Netaji's being alive. Facts about such anxiety came up before Khosla Commission when a number of former chief of intelligence department of government of India like B.N. Malik, S.R. Mirachandani and others appeared before the commission. These witnesses informed the commission that whenever there was any report about Netaji being seen or heard anywhere in India, Nehru never ignored such reports. Top men of the intelligence department were asked to inquire into such reports. It came before the commission that many Naga and Mizo leaders were examined when some of them publicly stated that they knew that Netaji was alive. The mystery of Shalmari Sadhu created a sensation in the early 60s all over the country. Pandit Nehru also felt quite concerned about the identity of this Sadhu. Late Surendra Mohan Ghosh, a former revolutionary leader of Bengal who was once very close to Netaji, was especially chosen by Nehru for verification of the identity of the Sadhu of Shalmari Ashram. Dr. Rajendra Prasad and Dr. Shri Morarji Desai also evinced keen interest in the matter. Late Surendra Mohan Ghosh visited Shalmari Ashram and had long talks with its Sadhu. On return to Delhi, he informed Nehru that the Sadhu was not Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. All this information later Ghosh communicated to Khosla Commission when he deposed before it. A few days before Panditji's death, Shri Amiya Nath Bose, a nephew of Netaji, wrote to him that in the national interest there should be a final judicial inquiry by the Chief Justice of Supreme Court regarding the air crash at Taihoku in August 1945. In his prompt reply, Panditji informed Amiya Bose, quote, "I agree with you that something should be done to finalize the question of Netaji's death." An Interpress article. Deban Sen, a former MP, gave a surprising account of his accidental meet with Netaji at Marseilles airport in France in 1949. He and Joglekar, a trade union leader of Bombay, went to France to attend an international labor conference. Both of them were well-known labor leaders of those days. When they arrived at Marseilles, they were extremely puzzled to find a person in military uniform exactly like Netaji standing in the airport lodge surrounded by a few white security men. Deban Sen knew Netaji quite intimately when he was in India. Being surprised and overjoyed, Deban Sen and Joglekar moved hastily to greet the person whom they identified as Netaji. But before they started to approach him, Netaji, as they believed him to be, raised his forefinger, cautioning them not to try to talk to him. The man with his security personnel boarded a plane some time later and left Marseilles. Returning home from their European visit, Deban Sen took the first opportunity to inform Sarath Chandra Bose about this strange incident. When the latter advised him not to mention this apparently unbelievable story publicly, Deban Sen disclosed his puzzled experience to the press many years later and only some time before his death. Earlier, he narrated his experience to the present writer and to Chapla Kanta Bhattacharya, a former MP and the editor of Anand Bazar as well. Shri Bhattacharya told about it to Khosla Commission while he appeared before it. Interestingly, however, British communist leader Galachar said in a statement almost at the same time when the story was narrated by Deban Sen that Subhash Chandra Bose recently visited Ireland to see De Valera. His statement independently lent support to the account of Deban Sen's accidental meeting with a man like Netaji at Marseilles. Could it be possible then that Netaji was going to Ireland from Russia via Marseilles? It is very difficult to say yes or no. A German global intelligence agency, well known as Interpress, published an article in 1949 which claimed to be possess information about Bose's living in Russia. It included Galachar's statement as well. In this article called International Biographer Precedence Subhash Chandra Bose, a copy of which was produced by the writer before Khosla Commission, Interpress wrote recent happenings indisputably point to the fact that Indian revolutionary Subhash Chandra Bose, who is allegedly to have died in a plane crash after the Second World War, is waiting for an opportunity to bring the Asian political scene under his control. Whatever might be the evidentiary value of this article, at least this article published by an internationally reputed intelligence agency corroborated the fact that many in the Western world did not believe the story of Netaji's death in alleged air crash. In the concluding part of its fairly long article, it was stated, quote, "Immediately after the termination of the Second World War, Mr. Bose had again been declared dead. It was true that Tokyo radio had broadcast that Bose met with an accident on his way from Taihoku Airport in Formosa and later succumbed to injuries. The world had not given any evidence whatsoever to this broadcast. Nobody has seen the dead body caught in the flames of the wrecked plane. Those who were conversant with post-war development in Southeast Asia were aware that at the time of surrender, the Japanese in their delunt list to the Allied powers referred to many important persons as having died in plane crash. Even at the age of 50, Subhash Chandra Bose was physically strong and possessed unparalleled mental strength and a political leader of unique foresight. And it should not be assumed that this short-hearted, far-sighted leader had not thought of his possible future course of action. Was he not aware of the intention of Moscow to utilize the resurgent anti-Asian nationalism then or in near future? He could well have taken advantage of the prevailing turmoil in China consequent on the Allied victory in 1945, and with the help of a considerable amount of gold he had in his possession, he could have easily made his way into the Soviet territory and could well have arranged to reach Moscow or in any other lonely locality in a plane or seek asylum there. What else could have been the significance of the news given out by the British communist leader Galachar that Bose had gone to the Irish Free State on a secret mission? Crores in India firmly believed that after an epoch, vast changes would overtake the country, which would in its turn convert India into a veritable heaven. Mr. Bose, with his Buddha-like appearance and a yogi of a very high order, would perhaps one day be emancipator not only of India but of whole Asia. The whole of India was today swept by the impact of his tremendous personality. If Mr. Bose is alive today, and in all probability he was alive, it was certain the world would again hear his voice. Yes, innumerable Indians refuse to believe that their leader, the revolutionary pilgrim of Indian freedom, will no longer come back to his beloved motherland. The Tokyo broadcast appeared to them as nothing but a political story which was neither proved nor attempt was made to officially confirm it by the Japanese authorities. All the men of the highest echelon of Japan in those days looked upon Netaji as found to be recorded in their secret document as a superman. Tojo described him as a quote, the greatest revolutionary of Asia, and Shingamitsu, his foreign minister, called him quote, the greatest hero of our age. Could the Japanese authorities lapse into complete silence by simply announcing the report of his death, so cryptic and so evasive in contents? Had Netaji really died? The analysis of all circumstantial evidence made in the following chapters would make it clear that the news of Netaji's death was deliberately broadcast as a part of a political camouflage for enabling him to go to underground after the Japanese surrender to the Allies.